Hiya, welcome to this, my 99th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Jeri Ryan, and sifting my basket of media memories, and in this installment, titled Getting Up to Speed, I explore a mysterious recurring figure in the Psych series, then launch into a long-anticipated book review. Also, I use some of my downtime to binge a few titles long recommended to me. Welcome to the show. He doesn't have it on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy. Episode 99. It's not 100, it's 99. Even the title, Getting Up to Speed, suggests prelude. Problematic as this move has been in terms of getting ourselves situated, we're currently staying with this family in Utah while our house sells and our relocation continues. Very grateful, but as interminable as this process seems to be, I've enjoyed the downtime I've had processing audio, binging stuff I've wanted to see forever, relaxing, and just enjoying the between times. Fuzzy feature was the usual tough call. This set turned up the pilot episodes of American Dad, Grey's Anatomy. Oh, and I just about had to do this one after Big Bear last time. I had the pilot episode of Tyler Labine Vehicle's Sons of Tucson in here, and, well, there were a few, but the biggest argument against that one is, damn, it was bad. It stunk on ice. A bunch of anime turned up. Adult Swim aired a bunch of 2002 era Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Robot Chicken, Cowboy Bebop. I had a bunch of Simpsons, a bunch of South Parks, one Simpsons that referenced South Park, that was cool. Significant episodes of Lost, Dollhouse, and Castle turned up, but oh wow, just when I found the Hitchcock-themed follow-up to Psych's third season Heartstopper and Evening with Mr. Yang on disc 1739, I pretty much locked in on the fourth season finale Mr. Yin Presents was going to be the feature this time. On disc 1021, I had the first installment of this showdown, third season finale, An Evening with Mr. Yang. No spoilers for 15-year-old production, Ally Sheedy is Mr. Yang, infamously known as Santa Barbara's most notorious serial killer, back from a 7-year break, and this time focused on James Rodea's fake psychic Sean Spencer. In a mix of stencil and letter-cut notes, the police are told, and bring your psychic. The Santa Barbara Police Department have another consult, Mary Lightly, a profiler who'd been working the case for 13 years. Mary, played by Jimmy Simpson. Yep, Mr. Yang's a chick and Mary Lightly's a dude. The case develops yin and yang, pairs of opposites. It's a whole thing. Lays the background for the modus operandi. Mr. Yang, no one has any information on this character at all, so one wonders what Mary's been working on, honestly. Will yoink a victim, will absolutely murder them, always has. I mean, no one really knows where they've been or what they've been doing for the past 6 years. They're coming back big and splashy. Mr. Yang's target is so close to Sean, she actually served him, Dule Hill, as friend and known associate Burton Guster, or Gus, breakfast that morning. Sean figures it out, and figures out the alphabet's clue in the waitress's locker, but it makes the rest of the clues so difficult. Newsprint lining a rat cage with classified ads pointing to the next location, a coal train chugging through Santa Barbara where they find a packet of developed photos of Gus throwing something away at a nearby garbage can that very morning, then a ringing cell phone taped beneath a bench on a pier, the call coming from inside the psych office itself. Oh, for the love of Edward Nygma. Sean rejects the premise, so Mr. Yang rejects the victim, leaving her in a hotel room even Timothy Robinson as SBPD detective Carlton Lassiter can figure out. Instead, Mr. Yang ups the stakes, abducting Sean's mother. The episode I remembered was way more dramatic than the episode as it aired. Showrunner Steve Franks got Ally Sheedy. He was not going to waste Ally Sheedy. Ally Sheedy is a get for this production, no mistake about it. I was pretty sure that the introduction of suddenly reactivated Santa Barbara serial killer Mr. Yang was the episode in which Maddie Hayes, Spencer, Sybil Shepherd as Sean's mom, Maddie Spencer, was murdered. Well, more spoilers, but she was not. Which should have been obvious, but I remembered her in a drive-in theater strapped to a bomb and Ally Sheedy holding the detonator. Now, this obviously could not have happened. I mean, It could. Max Gale at one point sent Corbin Benson, Sean's dad, Henry Spencer, to the hospital with a critical gunshot wound. But even in that story cycle, Gus, erstwhile known as Sterling Cooper, Trapezius, Milkington, and from the classified ads I mentioned, Bruton, Gaster, managed some trademark banter. Because that's the biggest problem, right? I mean, USA Network's production Psych is light comic dramedy, fusing elements of nastiness and crime-solving with Sean's humorous banter, distracting everyone from the clues he pieces together by the last second to solve the case and save the day. If Ally Sheedy actually murdered his mom in the third season finale, this show would have been very dark, and the comic elements we enjoy when Mr. Yang character recurs would be tainted somewhat by her being, well, an actual serial killer who had killed Sean's mom. I think that's why they took a big step back in Mr. Yin Presents, which, as I mentioned, showed up in this set on disc 1739. After a Hitchcock Film Festival, Mary meets with Sean and Gus at a diner, joining them for a slice of pie. Mary said he never left Santa Barbara after the Mr. Yang trial, and he fears that while Mr. Yang is indeed very much locked up in an insane asylum, he theorized that she was not working alone, that Mr. Yin was prepared to strike again. And while Mr. Yang was ordered, methodical, played by rules, Mr. Yin was an agent of chaos. Sean has no time for this nonsense, leaves him up to his silly theories, but the next day the waitress who served them, and him sensing kind of a pattern, turns up dead on a beach with stones arranged in the yin-yang pattern. Cue the opening credits. This one was a celebration of Alfred Hitchcock, down to the title, Mr. Yin Presents. The references I knew offhand were Psycho, The Birds, Vertigo, and Rear Window. I think I was supposed to recognize a car scene from The Man Who Knew Too Much, but other fleeting references gave us Lifeboat, 39 Steps, and North by Northwest. Detectives Lassiter and O'Hara, Maggie Lawson as Juliet O'Hara, check out the last place she was seen, the diner, and find Mary there. He said he never left, but Sean spots a clue. It's a crossword puzzle buried in a pie. The answers indicated to find me, helpfully articulated by Officer Buzz McNabb, correspond with who could have foreseen the seating at the theater, the seat where Mary had been sitting. Sean's hyper-awareness kicked in during a dream state, placing Mary at the theater, then finding the note crammed into his seat, referencing Sean showing up 20 minutes late, so Mr. Yin was paying really close attention to everything. It was so tempting to just call Mary Lightly the killer at this point, since after the diner closed you'd been able to arrange all the things, and of course Jimmy Simpson is just so deliciously weird, right? But Mary Lightly was busy with the team investigating all day, and the Hitchcock Festival he rigged up. Well, honestly, that would have taken anyone days to accomplish. Neon signs, trapdoors, set motifs, but the misdirection that split everyone up at the crucial moment was reinforced by Mr. Yin first staging Juliet's peril at the clock tower before murdering Mary Lightly on the steps, Ayla the detective in Psycho, then speeding across town to the airport to knock out the ginormous Officer Buzz and kidnap Sean's girlfriend Abigail, Rachel Lee Cook as Abigail Lightar, when she flies in that evening from Uganda, and tie her up at the pier. So, wow, the scheming and the planning and the timing. Per his final note, Sean won't be able to save them both, Juliet from the clock tower or Abigail from drowning under the pier, a clue Sean was able to decipher from the book jacket Mr. Yang, Ally Sheedy, made sure he got, complete with a stick figure depiction of Abigail scribbled on the inside and the slightest indication of water. Big plot holes require big leaps. I mean, no way Yang could have known about any of this when she wrote the thing, once it was printed, or when she personally mailed it to Sean, but oh well. In the end, Gus and Lassiter were able to save Juliet, and Sean and Henry were able to save Abigail, whereas Sean's movie date with Abigail and an evening with Mr. Yang was technically their first date, since they reconnected at the high school reunion near the beginning of season 3. Sean's heroic rescue of Abigail had the opposite effect these things usually do. She reasoned that dating someone an at-large serial killer is clearly obsessed with does not bode well for her long life and happiness, so she breaks up with him. Quel dommage. It's kind of weird that neither Sean adjacent target, which Mr. Yin is clearly aware of Sean's long-term affection for Juliet and his fourth-season girlfriend Abigail, is among the body count, but Mr. Yin did murder the waitress and the profiler, and we knew it wasn't just Mary Lightly in a mask because we watched him die at the foot of the steps, and we know it's not Mr. Yang because she is very much behind plexiglass. So surely our answers lie in Sheedy's next appearance, Yang 3 in 2D, which I have archived disc X262 in my current collection. And they do. Top of the episode, Sean affirms Kirsten Nelson's Chief Karen Vick that he and Gus get leads on yin cases an average of 6 to 7 times a week, but apparently far fewer of those tracked at the Santa Barbara Police Department. So when they get a lead about Allison, Mena Savari is Allison, a simpering blonde leading them on a wild as well as armed goose chase through a college campus and some nice family's home, they're inclined to believe the flutter-eyed nymphette and follow her straight into, oh look, Mr. Yin's basement. Allison gets Sean and Gus tied up across from Mr. Yin, who makes some kind of unmasking reveal, which is banal because, yeah, the great serial killer, however cool his office, whatever great wah motivates him on his big woohoos, it's all just some crazy-eyed loon bent on destruction, in this case, played by Peter Weller. We don't get into his past crimes, not really, and then we learn he was never all that interested in Sean at all. It's just that when Mr. Yang, Mr. Yin's daughter, as it turns out, met Sean as a boy riding around his neighborhood back in 1990, he radiated such intelligence and kindness to her that she, in one moment's encounter, just became obsessed with him. She asked for a picture with Sean, and his mother obliged. That photo turned up Photoshopped during this case, and no one could remember it at all. Well, because the background was switched out for something else. And anyway, the important thing is that Mr. Yin is about to murder Sean and Gus for having tracked him down, I guess, and Mr. Yang bursts through the office door. Yes, they've released her, Mr. Yang, Ally Sheedy, to examine the crime scene, Sean's old bedroom where the victim, Allison, has been held as a safe room. She went missing, and there was a yin-yang symbol on Sean's He-Man bedding. But since, in fact, Allison was never a victim and was instead Mr. Yin's new protege, she was also bait. And switch! With Mr. Yang's help, the police track Mr. Yin to his now barricaded home, but Mr. Yang knows a way in through the storm cellar. Ooh. She and Juliet sneak in through the basement when Mr. Yang breaks off and makes a mad dash through the house, leaving Juliet to deal with the duplicitous Allison, a high-stakes battle from which Juliet emerges victorious, and Mr. Yang, as I said, bursts in to confront Mr. Yin, just as he is about to inject Gus with a poisonous chemical concoction. There is a brief, semi-enlightening exchange of words, but just as Juliet overpowers Allison downstairs, Mr. Yang plunges his scissors into Mr. Yin's chest upstairs, thus posting her first actual kill. Her heart had never been in it for the serial killing. That's why Mr. Yin reached out to a new protege.
You replaced me?
And no, he never read her book. He was upset with her, and there was no conversation on screen about why he stopped for 6 years. I think it was something like he never faced much of a challenge, but when he confronted Sean, he was all like, well, I never even knew who you were. That was all Yang. But Sean, in fact, thwarted 2 of his kills last time. So this person he didn't even know and wasn't remotely interested in, but somehow also knew arrival times from Uganda for the one person. Okay, look, it's comedy. It's a light crime-themed dramatic comedy about a hyper-observant funny pants and his long-suffering sidekick. Actual serial killers are dark, complicated, require a body count. Apparently before Sean arrived on the scene, Mr. Yin was plotting his devious, insidious crimes and then just took a convenient break for no specified reason until his crazy daughter plotted out a very Sean-centered crime. It would have been extraordinarily difficult to manage even if everything went perfectly, but you know, that's why you have things like writers and production teams and chat boards where fans can theorize endlessly about all of the things that happen and pick out inconsistencies. The projectionists! What about the projectionists? So, all that is just fine. In fact, the 4th and final chapter in the Mr. Yang tetralogy I've already examined at length around the 42-minute mark of episode 56 embraced the deception, to wit, Psych, the musical, which, in all honesty, is not a great send-off for the character. They had a couple great ideas and wove them into something semi-coherent and absolutely made fun of the format, but the season 3, 4, and 5 finales made a perfectly good redemption arc. We'd have been satisfied that Mr. Yang was off in Arkham somewhere, happily crocheting butterflies or whatever. Her on-screen death was frankly too incidental and did not do her justice. So, thoughts? Well, this show does wonderful things with recurring characters like Sybil Shepherd, Rachel Lee Cook, and Carrie Elwes as Sean's mom, Sean's girlfriend, and professional art forger turned Interpol informant Pierre Despereaux, respectively. Ally Sheedy is such a fantastic get for this show, they wanted to do something special with her, and God knows she gave the Ally Sheediest performances of her career. But like crime-themed comedies dip their toes into serial murder advisedly. One or the other aspect will win out. If she'd killed Sean's mom, there's no returning to that well for jokey, silly silly banter. And in Mr. Yin Presents, had the body count grown by 1, it wouldn't matter how cute or clever the Alfred Hitchcock movie references were. Serial killers are psychopaths, so a legitimate target for crime-fighting operations, but probably after assaulting an officer, abducting a hostage from an airport, and imperiling one of her detectives, Santa Barbara Police Department Chief Karen Beck wouldn't call Sean when Allison showed up at the station. She'd call the FBI. So yeah, balance. It's a tough call. I think they did all right. Mostly we all got to enjoy the cute, fun basket case aspects of Ally Sheedy's serially silly Mr. Yang, and oh my god, the alphabet's clue. Serial killer for the win, guys. Can't believe it took me 16 years this week to make that connection. Well played, people.
I associate many things with many things.
Cross connection. No one in Psych is more than one step removed from the mystical centers of my media collection, defined as 6 Feet Under, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, or Ryan Murphy and Joss Whedon Productions, also known as my Studio 60 Feet Under Murph Whedon Challenge. No. Anyway, no one is more than one step removed because of, well, Jane Lynch and Ryan Murphy's Glee, and then from Joss Whedon's Buffy movie, Christy Swanson's recurring appearances as Lasseter's love interest. They'd never have been that far anyway, given Dooley Hill's appearance at Studio 60's Bradley Whitford in the West Wing, but we need, in cases like this, to focus on the connecting thread, which in this case is Ally Sheedy. Ms. Sheedy appeared in War Games with Matthew Broderick, who was in Election with Reese Witherspoon. Reese was in, never mind. Matthew also appeared in Only Murders in the Building. Anyone in Only Murders in the Building is just one step removed from Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip through the appearance of Sting in both shows, as himself even. So connection made. Speaking of Only Murders, I spotted Martin Short in his appearance as Uncle Jack in Arrested Development, second season episode Rennie Aim, Marry Me. This resumes where it split off from its other half, recorded on disc 537, so wow, that's a separation of more than 1,200 discs. So cool it finally turned up. Other points of interest, I spotted Devon Gummersall in the second season Clearly Sweeps episode of Castle, where the theme was lifted directly from CSI Miami. The body of a beautiful sex industry researcher found lashed to playground equipment and drizzled in caramel sauce. Then Stana Katic as Detective Kate Beckett betrayed some secret knowledge of bondage equipment and manufacture, much to the bemusement of Nathan Fillion as titled crime fiction author Richard Castle. Gummersall played Brian Krakow, awkward teen neighbor to Claire Danes as Angela Chase in the short-lived 90s teen drama My So-Called Life. Raising Hope's Garret Dillahunt appeared with Frasier's John Mahoney in an episode of Burn Notice that turned up on disc 1730, and acknowledged Golden Thread Beau Bridges showed up in a 5th season episode of The Closer as Georgette Andrews, one-time partner of Lieutenant Provenza and Nia George, so that was fun. Speaking of golden threads, however... Golden thread... Ms. Jeri Ryan, how have I not yet celebrated this actor's arc through my collection? I found her most directly in the 4th season Psych episode, where she was phenomenal as per always. A 4th season episode titled The Head, the Tail, the Whole Damn Episode, where the episode was split across 2 discs, but the separation was only 3 discs apart. That was convenient. Ms. Ryan, I have obviously been enamored of since she turned up in the Delta Quadrant, separated from her Borg attachment, Ms. 7 of 9 on Star Trek Voyager. I was in my late 20s and fascinated, as were many, by her cybernetic implants, so my development was arrested. Yes, absolutely. Standout performance. She's actually been in Who's the Boss, I mentioned a couple times recently, but well after I stopped watching. That was her first screen credit in season 7 of that show. I mentioned Star Trek Voyager. She was stewardess in Down with Love. She made a couple of appearances, Courtney Reese opposite William Shatner as Denny Crane in late second season episodes of Boston Legal, and if she's who I'm thinking she was hilarious. I mentioned her Psych appearance and found her in a couple other cable productions I've highlighted in the past. Leverage, Major Crimes, and she was in Warehouse 13, so that's USA Network's TNT and Sci-Fi. Very nice, though I never really followed Major Crimes, just cool to see her involvement. Then I saw her in, this is weird. I'm pretty sure I only watched the first season of Dana Delaney vehicle Body of Proof. I think discovering as I put this list together that not only were there 3 seasons of that show, but Jeri Ryan was in all of them, and wow, I'm not remembering her. You know what? I am remembering some kind of hard-ass manager, but you know what I'm also remembering? The air dates coincided just about exactly with a devastating flood that tore our city apart, so I'm going to be just this kind to myself for being a little fuzzy on the details of Jeri Ryan's role in the Dana Delaney project that I just saw had a musical episode, and when it turns up in my collection, I'll be sure to pay closer attention this time. I will say this, if you need a strong, confident woman, Jeri Ryan is a go-to. She has excellent comic instincts, knows exactly what she brings to a role, and regardless of how Stephen Colbert has repeatedly dismissed her range as a piece of tinfoil stuck to her eyebrow, she is way more than that. I've seen depth, loss, pathos, warmth, joy, and humor as she interprets her characters. Doc Kimberly Phoenix in Psych is way different from Tara Cole in Leverage, and 7 of 9 is her own creation entirely. Beautiful actor, strong storyteller, solid contribution throughout. Anyhoodles, focusing on the Mr. Yang arc of the Psych series teased me up beautifully to discuss another mystery I've been anticipating for, about a year now. The second installment in Kemper Donovan's ghostwriter mystery series, Loose Lips. Children, quiet please.
Today I read
Book Report. Now, I reviewed his series debut, The Busybody, in episode 92, Reunion, around the 1930 mark, if you're interested. And for sure one mystery has been solved in this entry. The ghostwriter's name is Belle!
There must be more than this provincial life.
No, the name of our busybody ghostwriter is not Belle. Belle Kerr is her nom de plume. But when I turned the page and saw her name there, I wasn't sure I was reading English. He's not going to name her on page 9, not after all the hard, sometimes exhaustive work involved in keeping her nameless in the busybody. Well, we learn little more about her personal history or her nondescript roots in Texas, though we know she's someone's younger sister, and she matriculated from state school literary program with a couple of besties, all of whom ended up on a cruise together to somewhat awkward effect. Yes, I refuse to spoil one thing about this novel, which, as I'm writing this, isn't even technically released. Loose Lips was slated for wide release February 4th. My copy arrived in the mail January 25th. I had it in my hot little hands as of January 27th, and as of January 28th, I've read as far as the author, be it Kemper or Bell, characterized as the first murder, the victim's name revealed on page 150. And I'm not even going to share that. Rather, with only half the book in my rear view so as to make spoilers completely impossible, I'm going to pause and talk about the show so far, which has already involved some clues and reveals and definitely some fantastic interactions. Loose Lips is set on board a cruise ship, so talk about a closed circle mystery. Some 275 women and a couple few men set off on a week's adventure aboard the Merman Rivera for a get-lit cruise with celebrated self-help guru Peyton Garrett, whose memoir traced her escape from strict evangelical upbringing and launched her as a pop culture icon. She's gathered a few other contemporary authors around her, chosen, it's hard to miss, almost specifically not to outshine her, and together they'll spend part of January at sea in the North Atlantic on a big-ticket cruise with a famous chef, drinking a lot, and chatting about books. When you spend 150 pages constructing the world in which your murder will take place, and we're told on page 5 to anticipate 3, so the presence of a murder in a murder mystery is not a spoiler, put away your smelling salts. Anyway, when you spend half the novel world building, you've had the opportunity to share a lot of personal interaction with the reader. Perhaps most intriguing to me was the insights we gain on this narrator. For one thing, her conversation with Miss Marple. Oh, stop it, Kemper. We've got Belle talking to an elderly romance writer crocheting gun cozies. I know exactly who this is. Miss Marple asks her whether she reads romance novels. Belle replies in the negative, but declines to mention she's actually written at least one we learned of in The Busybody. Of course, she couldn't talk about that one without revealing her real name under which it was published. Careless girl. Of course, she told us about that one in that novel, so it's all so wonderfully self-referential, isn't it? One suspects her literary superstar friend from college and event organizer Peyton Garrett, with her evangelical background and fabulously successful self-help series, who invited Belle along on the all-women, all-the-time get-lit cruise with hundreds of literary fans, along with Peyton's journalist ex-husband, Gideon, Peyton's dramatic new wife, Nicole, and Peyton's fabulous assistant, Loose Lips himself, Jackson Richards. Anyway, one suspects Peyton and their college frenemy, Flora, would have known about this early romance novel, but conspired for it to drift into the mists of literary obscurity in favor of Belle's most recent literary triumph, true crime murder mystery she was involved with, which she documented in The Busybody itself. That book got her the invite, and maybe a dozen or so students attending her workshop. What was I supposed to notice? Well, when the book opens, they're pulling out of port and Belle is accosted by a seagull. This provided a conversation opening with Get-Lit attendee Geraldine Forrest in a crisply tailored trench coat, hardly out of place on the deck of a ship in January, but later we find her in that same trench coat peeking in and listening at the door to Belle's cabin. Now I had to go back and check if she did indeed share her room number with Jeri. It's not clear, though that interaction is where we learn Belle is in cabin 69, which is located on the 4th deck, which is one of the lowest decks. It is in just this writerly way we are fed just a wealth of information that Jeri appears to be locked out of Belle's room, but someone did gain entry because a manuscript by one of Belle's students, Helen Sanchez, was found on the bed in Belle's room, accessible only by an old-fashioned key held by the guest or a master key controlled by the ship's no-nonsense captain, who grew up around Peyton's hyper-religious family in her backwater burg and reminded her of this when Peyton chartered her voyage. The fact had slipped Peyton's mind. What a coincidence. The captain claims not to be religious herself, but I suppose it's possible Peyton's very public bisexuality, her interracial marriage, or her flamboyantly gay assistant could be setting someone's nose out of joint. Certainly I'd missed that Dr. Joan, a woman who'd reached out to Peyton to be part of the ship's staff, was missing her assistant, who'd gotten very sick the night before the ship left port and actually left the ship. See, I was so focused on the fact that Dr. Joan heard the woman retching all evening, but did not witness it herself. Never trust anything you can't witness directly, that I missed the fact that the assistant was no longer on the ship. This also left the room next to Dr. Joan empty so someone could sneak in and spy on her. Oh, Kemper's got me imagining all kinds of goings-on. One thing I did not understand was how damn near all these passionate readers on board would have so pointedly snubbed Belle's class. First off, murder mystery and particularly true crime are famous for attracting a female readership. Way more than poetry, are you kidding me? There'd be people interested in getting some first-hand insights, some of her work with Senator Dorothy Gibson, the failed but fiery female candidate for president Belle wrote about so engagingly. Sign-ups or not, there should have been lots more people attending, peeking in, or at least at first class out of curiosity alone. The fact that there weren't allowed her to lay in the perfect groundwork for murder mystery class discussion, particularly small group. Kemper did a fine job with that scene, as well as Belle's conversation with the romance novelist. Both outstanding. What I'm not entirely clear on is why Belle? Peyton is so famous, or infamous, she'd have lots of authors and their agents swirling around to be part of the Get-Lit cruise. She reaches out to Belle at exactly the moment their old bestie from Illinois, land-grant master of fine arts, landscaping, and tire fittings academy was lodging this plagiarism complaint against her, and Belle said she'd never considered being part of it in the first place unless she was desperate. Why is she desperate? Not for the first time I'm left wondering, what is our ghostwriter not telling us? I guess we'll all have to read on to find out. Loose Lips, the second in author Kemper Donovan's Ghostwriter Murder Mystery series and follow-up to last year's triumph, The Busybody, is out now. They both are. Buy it anywhere you like, link in my show notes. So far I'm finding it to be quite a lot of fun. Update post having read the whole thing. Oh, Kemper, well done! A triumphant conclusion in terms of story, scene, and character development. Our mysterious ghostwriter gets more and more fascinating as we go. Onward to book number 3. Diving into my classic collection. This set focused on classic VHS to DVD transfer disc numbered 1726 to 1750, so the cataloging is coming along nicely. I mentioned a lot of high-profile finds in this set, and I'll chat about them here, but one more scene from Psych that I've been itching to share since we went into all that Mr. Yang stuff up there. It completely overshadowed Golden Thread Jeri Ryan's appearance, which is a shame, and I'll try to make up for it here. Jeri appeared in 4th season Psych episode The Head, the Tail, the Whole Damn episode as Dr. Kimberly Phoenix, and as you'll see, maybe this is going to be difficult to nudge into either discussion up there, but stick with me, it's fun. This was the episode where Lassiter is actually conducting a professional police investigation into a suspicious death when a man was attacked by a shark. One of the bite marks looks like a stab wound, but the press is so used to calling him out on stuff they're already leading with Detective Dipstick. Based on a description from Kurt Fuller's coroner character Woody Strode, Sean's got a lead on a weapon the guy was stabbed with. He shares in Lassiter's, he calls it beflusterment, which he's not yet added to his list of funny words, which now includes apopology, which I guess is the study of 1970s glam punk sensibilities. No, Sean, it's ichthyology, and it goes on Sean's list of funny words between avuncular and mangrove, all of which are admittedly quite funny as words go. But he knows lots of other ones too. The shark Sean's dad hauled in was stolen from the storage bin he'd stored it in and dragged someplace else on the pier and sawed open in case any incriminating evidence might have been, well, eaten. It had not, but all the gin joints in all the world, while seeking out the real shark, Sean accidentally charters the boat captained by the real killer, so hooray for justice. I mentioned the Grey's Anatomy pilot, and I didn't rewatch it, but I loved the messy way the pilot leaves everything. Title, Cial Grey surgical candidate Meredith Grey is in her mom's house because her mom is in memory care, and that house is open to her, and as it turns out, a bunch of her surgery intern classmates and now roommates. Her mom was emotionally distant, but was a genius surgeon, so there's this whole stretch of episodes where they're all just up in the attic studying cases of her notes, and Meredith is gaining insights into who she was as a person, and when wine glass rings disappear from the notes, that's where she was pregnant with Meredith. The house was just a beginning. We don't know Meredith. We don't know her mom, Ellis. We've never heard of Thatcher. We don't know about Chief Richard Webber or any of their history. The show opens the morning after an impulsive one-night stand. Hans and Derek pick up from a bar conveniently near the hospital she'll be training at and the house her mom owned, and you gotta be kidding me. Yep. Central point to the tension that beat with the intensity of an actual human heart, the central relationship for so much of this series. Derek McDreamy Shepherd and Meredith Dark and Twisty Grey hook up randomly the night before her first day as Dr. Miranda Bailey's intern, working underneath head of neurology, Dr. McDreamy. You know, I needed to just really celebrate how showrunner Shonda Rhimes crafts the universe. Her work in damn near everywhere I've encountered is first rate. It is a little breathless sometimes, it is a little wrenched, overdramatic, but she pays attention to details, to characters, to emotion, to motivation, to needs, demands, and expectations, and right settings. It all comes together beautifully. I mean, yes, occasionally you get the 6th season episode where they let the patient stay awake during the surgery and may be assessed, but for the most part, master storyteller, first rate. From the sublime to the precocious, I mentioned the pilot episode of Sons of Tucson. I was getting really the worst Malcolm in the Middle vibes from the writing on this thing. 3 young brothers looking for some adult figure to pretend to be their dad is already horrifying. However hilariously non-threatening Tyler Labine is, he demonstrates his inability to look after himself, let alone children. Yet, I'm supposed to buy as a premise for a TV show. How is this? Hey, Child Protective Services getting you down? You need a dad for the afternoon? Let's drag a $20 bill through a sporting goods store and oh hey, you'll do. I'm not saying American Dad was significantly better, but the Paul Lynde revival represented by Roger the Alien was delicious and maybe the only worthwhile element of the show. There were other points of interest, not least a dozen episodes of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex dated from 2002 and tracing a story arc from the Laughing Man incident to a growing sense of awareness among the Tachicomas. Some of these I recorded directly to VHS and included some very odd late-night commercials and graphic bumps by Adult Swim. And there's one change I'd made in blogging in my archive. Initially, when shows or episodes split across discs, I'd delete the title from one or the other to reduce repetition. This weirded me out a little when I talk about finding shows on those discs and the catalog didn't correspond. This, of course, mattered to no one, not even me, really, since the master catalog is maintained on my tower and this blog is just an approximation. But be a little more accurate, or maybe just a little lazier, column A, column B. It motivates anyone to pull up my catalog someday and look at what I've found so far. I feel I've had some good finds. Right now, since I can call it up from anywhere, it's my most accessible means of discovering what I've got in my collection, so I'm trying to keep it as accurate and as useful as I can.
What I've been watching.
Well, everyone's already known all this for years now, but Bridgerton is fantastic. Shonda Rhimes cannot put her hand to a story, but it crackles with raw power, emotion, and humanity. All of it. The good, the bad, the diabolical. And again, how fun is it to write like this, yes? So it's Bridgerton, it's 1813, and we've got Julie Andrews as Gossip Girl, Lady Whistledown, archly observing the events of the season as young women are presented at court with Queen Charlotte to receive suitors in parlours, gamely promenade around Grosvenor Square to achieve suitable mates. Lady Whistledown's observations are published and distributed for scandalous comment. Attention is swirling around Phoebe Devenner as Daphne, a young debutante who, upon being presented in court, was proclaimed a diamond of the first water, but whose eldest brother has inexplicably parried all potential suitors out of the picture except Lord Wessex, and Reg John Page as the Duke of Hastings, who swore to his cold and abusive father on his deathbed he would never marry or produce an heir, that the Hastings bloodline ends with him. Indifferent to each other, they form a devilish alliance to achieve mutual ends. The larger story centers on the Bridgerton and Featherington broods. It's almost as if the notion of the season has taken the somewhat graceless Featheringtons entirely by surprise, but the even bigger surprise is Marina, a distant cousin of the Featheringtons who arrives to their household with a secret of her own, carrying a child of a distant soldier. I immediately get the sense that scandals are just people nosing about other people's business, but the need to feel superior to others when it dictates one's position in society, it's clear enough that it affects everything. Some positions are assigned by peerage, some by alliances, and ascendancy may be gained or lost by a flicker of a royal eyelash. Standouts, well, I recognize Lady Danbury. Agile Ando immediately is Martha's mum from Doctor Who. She's deliciously expressive. It's so much fun to watch. And along with Nicole Coughlan as this last Christmas special, at least a second direct tie between the two series, Reg John Page is incredibly well cast. And I feel like the fact that Daphne legitimately had no idea who he was should have fired his immediate interest, though it does speak to some carelessness on the part of her mother. With this storyline, we're still more than a century removed from the works of Oscar Wilde, but the officious brother arranging unsuitable alliances in favor of his rakish friend from school, specifically because he knows him all too well, is simply unfair. He should know as well as anyone that who one is at school is different from how one comports oneself in society, but if short-sightedness were a crime, probably most of us would be damned. It's a delightful study in how things are, and watching imperfect people struggle to maintain what illusion of perfection they may, I can only imagine the effect of infusing social media into this environment, but word got around regardless. Thank you, Lady Whistledown. As the story progressed, more Bridgertons entangled their lives with more suitors, and while happy endings were never assured, I found myself fully invested in these people's lives. As for Stranger Things, I binged that as well, also prompted by my sister, and wow, just gotta say, the level of detail is fantastic, and the music, look, clothes, hair, makeup, and vibe, the whole celebration of nostalgia is first rate, but the pacing on this thing is glacial. The world of the show expands around a mysterious young girl, Elle, named by her teen rescuers for the 11 tattooed on her arm, escaping from a lab. We come to realize she has superpowers, somehow tied to the gate she opened in an alternate dimension that, among other things, messes with magnetic fields and feeds a dark power the D&D players call the Demogorgon. One of the kids, Will, gets trapped by the creature and lost in an alternate dimension, the Upside Down. Well, the police and military get involved. The lab is shut down, but as Elle learns more about her mind control, astral projection, and superpowers, she's reaching out to others like her, trying to find her mom. Hawkins, Indiana, this town that they're all in, is dealing with its own mess. Their entire pumpkin harvest rotting in the fields, and we learn that there's tunnels everywhere, more Demogorgon creatures, demodogs, and dark energy they call a mind flayer is taking over Will, so that's a problem. Turns out the lab wasn't shut down as well as it needed to be, so U.S. military came back and did that. But then there were Russians somehow, mall Russians, and more tunnels miles underground. Russians broadcasting secret code from inside Hawkins, Indiana to arrange highly sensitive drop-offs all to the same place, the mall. No one has ever figured this out, but a few teens working mall jobs do, because the Russians also want to open the gate to the other dimension. The Upside Down have totally tunneled their way here from the mall and set up a laser drill with nobody noticing. Okay, fair enough. Some dark blob energy is glooping a whole bunch of rats and then people into zombies and a great big blob creature, so it'd be easy enough to miss all that going on. Turns out it's this one guy, number one, who, when Elle thought she had killed him, destroyed the lab a few years back and lost all memory of having done so. What happened was she shoved him through a hole of the Upside Down. I guess he joined forces with the sheer well of evil down there, directed it, and became the darkness that took over Will, and then Billy, and then a whole bunch of zombies and Russians, and then hell itself opens on the land. Mind control, telekinesis, mental projection, MK Ultra, astral planes, alternate dimensions, there are demigorgons, darts, demidogs, Russians, blob zombies, the mind flayer. It gets so big. By season 4, they're in Indiana, Illinois, Utah, Nevada, Soviet Russia. The camera pans among half a dozen groups of people, all facing different challenges and fighting different monsters, but all working the same problem from different angles and being incredibly intuitive. A disturbed teen who grew up there in the 50s uses clinical depression and his army of bats to open 4 gates to the hellmouth. I mean, the upside down where everything's dead, which is constant surprise to the residents, despite the fact that there's been multiple splashy news exposés and the unignorable destruction happening around town over the course of the mid-1980s. Standouts here, well, I love that Paul Reiser ended up not being terribly evil, although I wondered how he managed to survive the demidog attack in the compound. I barely recognized him at first, but good to see him again all the same. I guess one scene that would have been fun to pan back to was when the surf and pizza guy came back to his shop in Nevada and wondered what the heck they did to his deep freeze, but that's not important right now. Though it is weird that they didn't. I mentioned the pacing. Honest to God, the 2-hour runtime on the season 4 finale, each final showdown got more and more epic, and yes, I downloaded Oingo Boingo's Dead Man's Party because I needed that in my life. And sure, you can call any mathematics department in the country and get Planck's constants, but how much more fun was it to watch Dustin have to pry it out of Susie? And it'd be a mistake to shrug the callbacks implied and explicit to 80s horror films. Along with the setting and tone, they open potentials for that other aspect of coming-of-age shows, the love interest, attraction, misunderstanding, jealousy, rage, Freddy's Nightmares, Carrie, Halloween, Body Snatchers, heck, all of Buffy with a hellmouth. Sure, stories sometimes got a little lost in the hormonal, but I did enjoy how much more credible the tone got with these elements accounted for. I'm just saying, with all the time spent scurrying around in the woods at night trying to discover stuff you don't even know what you're looking for, entire episodes where the only dialogue is people shouting "Will" at the sky and never-ending search for D'Artagnan, little groups of mostly kids sneaking for days around hospitals, air ducts, cabins, tunnels, malls, gulags. Maybe some of that suspense could have been suspensed with. Taking in 4 seasons in less than a week, sometimes it's just Bernadette Peters out in the audience saying, "Nothing is happening." They left things in a great place for both the 4th season of Bridgerton and the 5th season of Stranger Things. Everyone is absolutely right. I did totally dig both series. I'm glad I spent this amount of my downtime finally watching both. Looking forward to the return. Beyond that, it's long past time to get this one in the feed. Thank you all for checking in my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at VideoFuzzy.blogspot.com. For past episodes, add, follow, and subscribe to VideoFuzzy everywhere you get your podcast. Get a chance, please check out my VideoFuzzy at the soundtrack entries as well. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me at my blog or podcast sites via email at tjamon1970@yahoo.com or through my VideoFuzzy pages on Instagram and Threads. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing. It might be amazing, it might just be disgusting. We'll find it together on VideoFuzzy.